Do you wanna build a snowman? Build a snowman. Do you wanna build a snowman? Build a snowman.
What's up guys, Jay Sway here. I want to talk to you guys about creating kick drums in Metrum. So what Metrum is a 4-layer drum synthesis tool made by Vengeance. So typically it's used for like EDM music, but you can apply it to R&B, which I'm going to show you here. So we're going to go after two sounds today. One, a classic rap sound that changes pitch, like well, you see here The Motto, Talk Dirty and Problem by Drake, Jason Derulo, and Ariana Grande, respectively. So we're going to go after those sounds, and we're also going to go after a live remix by Zed, so more EDM type stuff. So to get right into it, let's find the key of Problem, because that's more often than not the kick drum is going to be tuned to the root note of the song. So if we're going to say like, well, I think Problem's in A flat minor, so it'll be probably playing in A flat. The fifth would also be kind of okay. That's because of the harmonic overtone series, but more often than not, like I said, it's going to be the key of the song. So here is Problem. Okay, you hear this swell going into the chorus. See if you can hear it, but it's just a reverse kick drum or something like that going into the chorus. It's a sub swell into the first kick. Kind of cool. That's not what we're going after. You can kind of edit the sound afterward and just flip it around, but we're going to go after the kick drum. So I think there's 4 main elements to kicks in general. Some of them are optional, but the main one is the sub, right? So with these types of songs, it's just going to be that fundamental sine wave. Usually, sometimes they add a little bit of distortion, you can, but it's just almost always a sine wave. And on top of that, so that's like the lowest frequency element. On top of that, it's going to be the body. So the body's like what you mainly hear in like earbuds, right? Because your earbuds can't necessarily produce something that's at 50 hertz. So the body is kind of like what you would think of if you heard a kick drum in an acoustic set. That kick drum, just like a beater hit, right? A third part, if you want it, would be a hi-hat, or a ride for a little bit extra, say in a chorus or something on top. So we're thinking laterally, right? It's like sub, mid-range is that beater sound or the body, and then the hi-hat's going to be in the treble range. So we want to get as much out of it as we possibly can. The fourth one, I kind of add this personally. I think that a lot of EDM songs that I've been hearing lately, they put a click, like a really high-pitched click that's modulated sine wave in the beginning, on the transient of the kick. And I think that it might also be tuned to the song, but it's more like a metronome sound that people can latch onto when they're dancing, because the sub can get kind of muddy, but if you have that click at the beginning, it really keeps time better. So those are the 4 things that I think of in a kick. But the one we just listened to, Problem, that one is playing in A flat, but it also has this kind of thump in the beginning, a little muffled hit. So see if you can pick out what I'm getting. Everyone can hear the A flat being played like really long, but the transient is more like, it's a little higher frequency than that. So see if you can hear it. You gotta get used to listening to elements in the mix that aren't the other stuff, right? The guy singing or whispering or whatever, and the stuff going on in the on the side. But the kick has this thump in the middle. So this is what I made to emulate that. I can hold it out as long as I want because I have Metrum basically saying look at the note of the how long the MIDI note is and play the fundamental that long, right? So without further ado, this is Metrum, and how did I make it sound like this? Well, you see there's only two elements loaded in here. So we have our oscillator doing something, and we have a sample loaded in here. So each time I press a key, those are going to be played. To have it modulate pitch, though, and play the notes that I'm playing, you go over here to MIDI, and you see these MIDI note length and MIDI note pitch. Select which ones you want those to change. So mainly I want the oscillator and to be changed length and pitch based on the notes that I'm playing. It didn't really matter that 2 and 3 were selected here because there's nothing loaded over here in samples 2 and 3, right? Now, another thing that's handy here is you can already choose the root of the key here, right here, right? So it's not in G, right? I said it was in A flat, but this key actually made it sound right because of the fine-tuning setting, and the default oscillator wasn't actually in the key of C when I started. So yeah, that's what made it sound right. So this, if you press a note and then listen to how it changes when you change the key, it'll make sense what I mean. Okay, I basically landed on that to where it sounded right. Now the biggest part is the sine wave, right? This oscillator. So if we go to the pitch envelope, we can see our sine wave, right? And for those of you who don't know, the main component of the sine wave is just going to be this kind of sweeping motion downward in frequency. So we start at a high frequency, and this is the x-axis here is time, the y-axis would be frequency. So we start at a high frequency and then we go down pretty quickly, actually. So we're holding out, say, 50.8 hertz here, and it holds that frequency as long as I tell it to. And you mess around with this until you get something that sounds right, right? But if I just play this, it sounds right, but there's nothing in the mid-range really that's filling this out. All you hear is this kind of modulated sine, which led me to put in this click kick 23. Well, where can you find this one? This by the way was just the default oscillator, and I changed these I guess envelope parameters a little bit. Now, because it sounded kind of weak, I wanted something in the mid-range, and that's where I went to find click kick 23. Where did I find click kick 23? Went to the library, went to attack presets because that's my body, that's what I want, and I found it in house attacks right there. So what does that sound like? Like this. So you notice it's higher pitch on average than the sub, right? Than this. Yeah, it definitely, it's shorter, but I was trying to emulate that thud in the beginning that you heard of the song, right? This. One less problem without you. Okay, so there's some rhyme and reason to this. So here is the sub, the kick without that mid-range thing in the beginning, and then with it. So without, now with. Okay, so just it fits right in there just like it does here, and the kick that I made, it might have actually a little bit more treble frequencies in the beginning, but you could just low pass it to make it sound exactly like the one in Problem. Another thing you can change here are the amp envelopes for each thing. I moved this back to 6 milliseconds or so to make room, I guess, for the transient of the click, this guy. And this guy is also very short. As you can see, it's only 70 milliseconds long. So you can literally kind of make room for other elements, samples that are playing in Metrum at once. So that's great. We have something that changes pitch, and we can try to apply it to something like Talk Dirty. So let's listen to that.
All I really need to understand is when you talk dirty to me. You talk dirty.
it sounds pretty similar, right? I'm not sure exactly what key it's in, but we could probably try to match it. It's about there, right? So not a G, maybe like a couple cents flat of a G. So let's try that.
All I really need to understand is when you talk dirty to me. You talk dirty to me. All I really need to understand.
It sounded pretty much right in there, like I was playing when you guys know that the other kick shouldn't have been playing, but it sounded like that kick, maybe just a little bit louder. But so yeah, it works for that setting too. Lastly, to show off the pitch modulation element of it, we have the motto. So our synthesis sounds like this. Pretty close, right? I mean, it doesn't take much to get these sounds, but they sound pretty good. So I'm going to leave it at that. If you have any questions, you can go back and emulate the Metrum instance that I had. So moving forward to the Z song, we have to find the key, right? So let's have this guy turned on so we can hear our keyboard. And let's play the song. Okay, I played a D, and that's what just happened to be right. So we're probably going to want to play a D with our oscillator in Metrum. So what I came up with is this sound. It sounds really aggressive, a lot more aggressive than our kick one. But how did I make this? Well, it goes along the same principles as what we did before. So this time I wasn't working with, we'll take a step back. To initialize a preset, you can go to memory here and just say initialize preset, and that'll clear everything and go to the default oscillator like we started with before. Once you do that, on the oscillator, I chose oscillator presets dance kick one. It just sounded pretty nice to me, so let's listen to that on its own. Okay, you notice here that there's some shape added to it, so a little distortion, and that's to make it kind of come out in earbuds maybe a little bit, add some overtones. Also, the fine tuning is turned down a little bit to make the pitch match. When I play a D, it should match the keyboard, right? So let's hear them together. Now, there's extra pitch modulation going on after, but the middle of the tone was with the keyboard. So, that's the dance kick oscillator. Going on to, well, let's listen to the song again. So, we have our sub that's kind of like just really, really loud and obnoxious almost, but going on to, let's see if we can like listen to the other elements of the kick drum. So. Sorry, mine was playing there too. Let's try that again. It's really hard to hear the kick drum on this one because there's so much other stuff going on, right? It's really hard to hone in. So let's listen for maybe a bare kick drum and just grab that. right there. One right around here. So let's look at it. This one sounds pretty bare. You gotta kind of not listen to the stuff going on around it. If you want to just hone in on, say, the sub, you can always use a high pass or a high cut filter to let through just the sub and listen to, is your sub matching that? So let's activate this EQ, and we're filtering out the cutoffs at 162 hertz, slope of 18 dB per octave, and it sounds like this. Okay, so that's pretty much what ours is going to sound like here. All you have to do is mess with these settings here, these envelope settings, right? If we put the same channel EQ on our instance of Metrum, so we'll just option command click it over, you should hear something like something similar. Sorry about that. There was mine playing at the same time a couple times, but it's pretty close, right? The fundamentals right there, but it is constantly moving down, right? So it doesn't actually sit on D, it just kind of goes through D in the middle. So that's what we were going for with, well, how did we achieve that? On the pitch envelope, so the sustaining part is at 50 hertz, but then after that, the release, it trails down to 43 hertz. So it, after you let go, or after it reaches this point, if you had MIDI length held on for the oscillator, it would hold 50 hertz the whole time. And when you let off of the key, it would go down to 43. But since I have it as not controlling the length, what is controlling the length are these envelopes. So it'll go through 50 hertz and just land at 43. So it's not landing on a D, and that's why we're getting the same kind of just sweeping through that sound, through the root note sound. All right, and then on top of that, though, this guy. Right, we have a couple body samples. This one is what? Ale kick. Sounds like this. It's also down tuned. Why is that? To be kind of in tune with the sub. So let's hear those together. Okay, and then another body kick is this, looks like Australia sample. So that sounds like this. You can see that it's low pass filtered a little bit, so the full sample sounds like, but we don't need all that high pitch stuff. It's also tuned up about 1/2 cents, and not one, and then. Yeah, together with ale kick, it sounds like this. Kind of crude, but with the sub, it's got a lot to it. And now finally, I said before that the third element of a good kick would probably be something like a hi-hat. So I don't hear much of a hi-hat in this song, so let's take a listen. Sorry, the filter's still on, so we'll shut that off. But there is more high frequency stuff. So You could either add that click that I was talking about, which is modulated sine wave, just for that initial part, or you could try to use just a quick gated hat. So if I go to the amp envelope here, you see that this is only letting 5 milliseconds of this sample through, basic closed. So if we listen to what that sounds like, we'll go to attack, hi-hats, basic closed, and it's muted, so it sounds like this. Okay, but the way we have it, it sounds like this. Right, a lot shorter, a lot, I guess, spikier, because I turn the spike up here, which is just like a differential transient thing. And yeah, that added to the body sample sounds like this. So you can see it adds quite a bit in the treble frequencies. So altogether, I guess. And then if we go, you can also sweeten this up with a little bit of effects. I've turned the drive up a little bit and softened it. If you put too much, it sounds just ridiculous, like you're doing hardstyle or something. And then I put a little bit of room reverb, so not too much, but that just kind of blends these elements together a little bit, I guess. I've also turned up the default output level to push into the Metrum's built-in limiter a little bit more, just to also make these elements sound more like they're one drum. So that's it. We can hear what this song sounds like without our drums and then with our drums. So let's cut out the sub so that we don't hear the original kick, but we hear our kick, and we'll just compare them. One more time. So the part that has our green kick, our green MIDI boxes here, that's our kick that we made. Okay, there are some like offbeat 16th note rumba things that are going and answering back and forth between the kick drum. You could make those too easily with Metrum using the techniques that we've already discussed. So this is kind of cool. I hope that this helps you if you're making electro house, or if you're making R&B, or if you're making rap, or whatever. If you have any questions on maybe making snares, I can cover that too next time. But until then, I guess thanks for listening, and we'll see you guys later.
Do you wanna build a snowman? Build a snowman.